Lesson 9.3c, histograms. So histograms is just another way to display data. If we look at the information in the box, it says data from a frequency table can be displayed in a histogram. A histogram is a type of bar graph used to display numerical data that have been organized into equal intervals. To make a histogram from a frequency table, use the following steps. Draw and label a horizontal and vertical axis. Include a title. Show the intervals from the frequency table on the horizontal axis. For each interval on the horizontal axis, draw a bar whose height is given by the frequencies. Okay, so bar graph, you should have seen the other day, individual bars with gaps in between. Each bar represented a different category. This histogram represents intervals. There are no gaps. All right, so let's look at the one that they did, okay? Let's look at the one that they did. It's showing NFL team scores, okay? NFL team scores. The frequency table at the right shows the scores of all NFL teams in the first game of a recent season. Draw a histogram to represent the data. So it says the first game of a recent season. How many of them scored from 0 to 9 points? 7. So they've got not only a tally, but then they write their frequency in. That's a frequency table. Are you familiar with those?
Yes.
Frequency table. I think you've seen those before. So the tally marks, you know, you put 4, and then on the 5th one you slash across, so you know that you're counting sets of 5. How many scored between 20 and 29 points? Daniel? 13. Okay, so you can read the frequency table. The intervals for the horizontal axis are listed there under the score column. So if you look down, let me kind of move this down a little bit. If you look down, they have the intervals across the bottom. So 0 to 9 would match the first interval. And 10 to 19, and so on. They come up with a vertical axis that represents the number of teams, which matches these numbers, and it shows that it needs to cover anywhere from 1 to 13. So they go by twos. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And they draw lines across, and then each bar goes up to match how many there are. So the 20 to 29, we just said, had 13. So you can tell that it hits 13, so between 12 and 14. So that's how you make, oops, that is not what I wanted to do. That's how you make a histogram. Now I got a feeling today, as you're doing your IXLs, a lot of it is going to be, it's called interpreting. So they're going to ask you questions like which interval has the most and things like that. Question, Liam.
Is there a difference between the histogram and the one that has spaces in between?
Yeah, that's called a bar graph. Yes, and the bar graph, each bar represents a category. It's not a complete interval, because these, if you see, represent a complete interval, and they touch from one to the next, because that's the first one covers all the way from 0 to 9. And I think that's kind of why, because of that interval that covers every section all the way, that the bars don't have gaps in between. Okay? That's the difference. So histograms, the bars represent intervals. Bar graphs, they represent different categories, and there's spaces in between. That's the only difference. Yeah?
So the bottom graph is the histogram?
Yes, this is it right here. And that's what you'd be interpreting. So they get their information, though, from frequency tables. All right, so let's look at one. Let's try to make one. I think this one's pretty small. We'll try it. I don't want to spend a lot of time because I'd like for you to get ready to get your stuff done so you don't have anything to do over the weekend. So this one is taxes, gas tax for each state. The frequency table shows the tax on gasoline for the 50 states. Draw a histogram to represent the set of data. So how many states have a gas tax that go from $20.10, 20 cents to 24 cents, I guess what I should say. 20.1 to 24. How many states? Jacob? 12. Okay, so when you're doing this, let's make one. We're going to label the whole thing and say gas tax for each state. All right, so gas tax for each state. And I need to have 6 intervals, so I'm kind of concerned I'm going to fit that all in, but we're going to try our very best. The vertical axis, or the vertical side, I'm going to have to say the number of what? What does the frequency represent? Number of states. Okay, what do the intervals across the bottom represent? What's the horizontal axis along the bottom going to represent? What do the intervals, the amount of tax?
And the gasoline.
Right, the tax. Okay, so we need to cover a frequency from 2 to 22. So I need my lines to go from 2 to 22. Well, obviously they're going to start here at 0. I'm going to try to go by, what do you think I should go by? Try.
4 5.
Let's see, 22. I'm going to try to go by, let me think how many sections I can get in here. Maybe 4. So we're going to go 4. I don't have enough space here. 12, 16, 20. And this one would be 24 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can read that. I'm sorry. I'm going to draw lines across. There's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24. Okay, and I need 6 sections along the bottom. So I'm going to first of all go 8.1 to 12. And how big does that need to go? How big does that? That only needs to go up 2, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to go like this and fill that whole thing in. All right, my next interval needs to go from 12.1 to 16. And how far does that need to go up? 5. So that needs to go up 5. So let's try this. It's got to be right beside the green. All right, the next section is going to be what?
22.
22. So I've got 16.1
Through 16.
to 16.1
It's
to
12.1.
I think I already did the 12.1, didn't I?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
It's
16.1 to 20. And that one has to go all the way up to 22.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Oh, it might have gone a little too far up there, right?
That's 24.
I don't know if I can do this without messing up everything. Yeah, I figured that. Okay. Okay, I'm trying my best. All right, it's kind of hard to do it on here. So then 20.1 to 24.
Yeah. Goes
How far does that have to go?
12.
Okay, so we're going to go 12. Next section is, what is
24.1 through 28.
24.1 to 28. And how far is that going to go? 6. So here we go. Notice how there's no gap in between, and I take it to as far as it needs to go. And then the last one is going to be 28.1 to 32.
And that's 3.
And that's only 3. So let me see if I can find another color. Yeah, let's try that. That doesn't look good. We'll go back to green. So 3. And that would be from here down then. Okay. Now, are there any questions about that? So what's got the biggest interval? Which one do most states charge? Nico?
16.1.
16.1 to 20. So most states charge that. What's the least amount that states? What's the least amount that states charge, Dylan?
8.1 to 12.
Yeah, 8.1 to 12. Okay, so the big thing is that you title it, you label the axes. There's no gaps in between. Histograms and histograms represent intervals.